So for our rainbow trails, what we want to do is we want to create a simple render pipeline. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a light, a camera, a geo, and I actually am going to add another geometry here. Great. So before we add our render, I'm just going to pop into this geo here, the first one, and I am going to add a box stop. Essentially, I want to create a wireframe to understand kind of like what my bounds are, my like working play area bounds in this virtual space. And I am going to add a wireframe, super handy, that is V thick. Don't need it to be that thick, even though thick is glorious, but not right now. Okay, and I know that I want this to be a little bit wider. And so I'm going to change the the size X value to 1.5, and I'm going to scale it up by 1.75. I know this just because I have done this work before. I'm going to add a null, and I am going to display and render that. So now when we come back here, we have a sweet box. Okay, I'm going to add a render top. So the reason I did that is so we didn't have two toruses on top of each other, and now you can see that there is some sort of kind of bounding box play area. I'm going to go inside of this other geo, delete the torus, and add a sphere sop. Those will be the kind of the 5 circles you saw being instanced for the fingers. I know from doing this that I want my sphere to be 0.025 in radius. So I'm just gonna make it 0.025, 0.025. And I am going to add a null and display and render that. Groovy, groovy, groovy. Now what you should see in your render top is our handy dandy like little box situation and a little friend in the middle. Groovy, we have this data. I am going to add a math after our select, just because I know we are going to need to do a little bit of math to get this working the right way. But before that, I'm going to attach a null here. And what I want to do is I'm going to use these values here in the null one essentially as our instances for the geometry. So on the instance page, I'm going to turn on instancing. That will make your little friend disappear. That's okay. Something that I already know that's going to happen before I pull the null over here is that right now we have really long names for our channels. And when I pull over, so I'm going to call this null inst. This is just a best practice, making sure that this is a null inst so that whenever I type in my instance chop, it always goes to my geo. It's a kind of easy way to connect. Now, typically you write instances as tx, ty, tz. So the issue that I knew was going to come up, but I wanted to just share this process with you, is that you get a warning here. Why? It can't find tx, ty, tz. That's okay. It's because our names are too long. So in our select, in rename to, I'm going to rename them tx, y, and z. And again, this is using pattern matching. Essentially, it's going to make a tx, a ty, and a tz. Boom, problem solved. So at this point, we are generating instances for our sphere. You still see the sphere in the center. It'll go back to that position. I'm going to put my hands over the leap motion sensor. The spheres are going to disappear. Magic. Really what is happening is that the values that are coming in from my instances are too large. Like I have something, man, we go up to like 500. It's essentially just too large for our window here. And so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna open this, oh, go back, be free. I'm gonna pull this over here so it's easier for us to see. Our math, I'm gonna go ahead and go to the multi-add page, and I'm just gonna multiply this by like 0.005, just because I know it's like enormous. Okay, here we are, little cuties. Little cuties. They're still, I think, a little bit too big because I'm not even that far from the sensor and we're already popping off. So I'm gonna do 0.025. Oh yeah, much better, much better. Look at that. Got little like hand, little fingers, little finger dots. Very exciting. Okay, groovy, groovy. I'm gonna like keep this guy over here so that we can still see it. And so now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add a constant material just so that we can more clearly differentiate the spheres from the background. So I'm gonna make this like gnarly fuchsia color, super fun, very exciting. Okay, and now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna close this. We are going to make our feedback pipeline. Feedback pipeline. Okay, so for your feedback pipeline, you need, first and foremost, a feedback. Very exciting. The next thing that you're gonna add is a level top, followed by a blur so that you have like a nice kind of glowy effect. And I'm gonna actually move the feedback, the level, and the blur down. And then I'm gonna add a composite top. I'm gonna add my blur, and then I'm gonna add the original composite. I'm gonna put a null at the end of this too so that I can reopen that window for us to see what is going on. View this null at the end here. Very exciting. So in order to get this feedback working, you have to drag your composite onto your feedback. You'll notice that everything has disappeared. It's totally okay. It's because the composite's default operation is multiply. We're gonna go ahead and set that to screen. Let's go with a screen. Oh my gosh, what's going on? So much feedback. Okay, first of all, a couple things. We need to bring down our level on our post page to like, I don't know, 0.95. Okay. Now we have a little bit of trails. Great. However, I'm gonna move that to 0.97. I totally forgot that we don't want to add this this like bounding box in our feedback. Like we don't need that. We don't need that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a render pass, and this is gonna allow us to separate the sweet nifty trail from our hands from the wireframe box. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag my render onto my render pass, set it as the render pass and top. On my render 1, I'm gonna set my geometry to Geo1, because right now, before I was looking at all with the asterisk, but now I just want Geo1. You'll see here, now we just have the fun bounding box. In the render pass, I'm going to set that to Geo2. Great. Oh, of course. And now in order to kind of get these two separate, the render pass, you need to turn on clear camera color. If not, you're gonna get the details from the render 1. And I already know that I need the clear depth buffer because I did this experiment and essentially I got some like really funky fighting with the lines of my box. And so now I'm gonna I'm gonna connect my render pass into my feedback pipeline. I'm gonna go ahead and pulse my feedback. Great. Why is that happening? It's because we need this. Okay. Whew. We're good. We're good. That really got me. I was like, why is this happening? Okay, as you can tell, there's this like funky trace situation happening. On my composite one, I need to go to the common page and change my pixel format to 32-bit float, and that will help clear away any of those ghostly pixels. Great. Things are looking okay. However, we are missing our second composite to bring back in. Actually, I'm gonna add an over. That'll help kind of differentiate things. So I'm gonna add an over, nifty, and I'm gonna bring the original render. Okay, I think at the order of that needs to be switched. Yeah, I want my container, yeah. I want my container, my render one above it. So essentially what I did is I added an over here just so that you can see it a little bit more clearly, so that I could be able to see this bounding box. Great. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Things are, you know, kind of interesting right now. It does feel like I would like to go higher up. Like the tracking is definitely more consistent up here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and bring my GO2 down in Y. So on the translate, I'm just gonna scooch this little friend. Maybe just do a -1, yeah. Okay, much better. Because the tracking for this device is better a foot away, in my opinion. Around a foot, you definitely have a little bit more consistency. Once you're within a foot, it definitely starts to see kind of get a little, yeah, there we go. It like comes in and out. And so there we go. We have some like nice painting happening. We could even make this trail a little bit longer. Let's like do 0.98 on the post page of level 1. Okay, we're like doing some magical goodness.